Spider-Man has always been more than just another superhero. For decades, he has stood as one of the most beloved and relatable characters in comic book history. On screen, Tobey Maguire gave fans an emotional, almost tragic Spider-Man, while Andrew Garfield brought charisma and intensity. When Tom Holland was cast, expectations were enormous. Marvel promised a fresh version, younger, funnier, and seamlessly connected to the wider MCU. The hype was real. Fans believed this would be the ultimate Spider-Man for a new generation. But over time, disappointment set in. While Holland's Spider-Man is energetic and lighthearted, many argue he lacks the independence, depth, and emotional power of his predecessors. Instead of being a hero who carries the weight of responsibility on his own shoulders, his version often feels like a sidekick, overshadowed by bigger names in the Marvel Universe. This essay explores why, despite his popularity, Tom Holland might actually be the weakest Spider-Man yet. When Tom Holland was announced as Spider-Man, excitement was massive. Fans had already seen Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield leave their marks, and both had set the bar high in different ways. Marvel Studios promised something different: a younger Peter Parker, closer in age to the high school version from the comics, who would feel modern, fun, and deeply connected to the wider Marvel Cinematic Universe. The trailers showed him interacting with Iron Man, cracking jokes mid-battle, and swinging through New York with youthful energy. Many believed this would be the perfect balance: a Spider-Man who could finally merge the charm of the comics with the spectacle of the MCU. The reality turned out very different. Instead of a self-made hero, Holland's Spider-Man was portrayed as heavily dependent on others, especially Tony Stark. His adventures often felt like side missions within the Avengers world rather than his own story. For many fans, this gap between what was promised and what was delivered became the biggest disappointment. One of the strongest arguments against Tom Holland's Spider-Man is how deeply tied he is to Tony Stark. Instead of standing on his own as a hero, he is often presented as Iron Man's protégé, almost a sidekick. His suits, gadgets, and even much of his confidence come directly from Stark Industries. The advanced technology, AI assistants, instant suit upgrades, and endless tools makes him feel more like Iron Man Jr. than the classic Spider-Man fans grew up with. In the comics and in earlier films, Peter Parker had to invent his own gear, sew his own suit, and rely on his intelligence to survive. That resourcefulness was part of his charm. A broke kid from Queens managing to be a hero with nothing but brains, heart, and spider powers. Holland's version skips that struggle. Without Tony Stark, his Spider-Man feels lost and incomplete, which undermines the very essence of the character. One of the reasons Spider-Man has always stood out as a hero is because of his growth. Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker started as a shy high school kid, faced Uncle Ben's death, and grew into a man defined by sacrifice and responsibility. Andrew Garfield's version showed emotional depth, dealing with loss and the pain of failed relationships. Both arcs gave their Spider-Man weight and maturity over time. Tom Holland's Spider-Man, however, often feels stuck in immaturity. Across several films, he remains more like a reckless teenager than a hero learning hard lessons. His mistakes are often covered up by mentors like Tony Stark or Doctor Strange, instead of him facing the consequences alone. Even when major events happen, like Aunt May's death, his growth feels rushed and underdeveloped. Instead of evolving into a responsible leader, Holland's Spider-Man often resets back to the same naive character, preventing fans from seeing true emotional progress. A core part of Spider-Man's identity has always been his independence. Even when surrounded by other heroes in the comics, Peter Parker is usually on his own, struggling to balance school, work, relationships, and his duty as Spider-Man. This dual life makes him relatable. He's a kid from Queens trying to survive while also protecting New York. Tom Holland's Spider-Man, however, rarely feels truly independent. From his very first appearance in Captain America, Civil War, he was introduced as part of Tony Stark's team rather than as a solo hero. In his later films, he constantly relies on mentors like Iron Man, Nick Fury, or Doctor Strange. Even major battles are rarely won through his own choices. Instead, they are influenced by the larger Avengers universe. This lack of independence takes away from what makes Spider-Man unique. Instead of being the friendly neighborhood hero who stands on his own, Holland's version feels more like a junior Avenger, always in someone else's shadow. Spider-Man has always been known as the friendly neighborhood hero. Unlike other superheroes who battle on cosmic scales, Peter Parker's strength comes from staying close to the ground, helping his city, protecting ordinary people, and balancing everyday struggles with heroism. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man perfectly showed this, saving children, rescuing passengers on trains, and fighting villains who directly threatened his community. Andrew Garfield also carried that spirit, portraying a hero who cared deeply about individuals in his city, even when he was overwhelmed by personal tragedy. Tom Holland's Spider-Man, however, often feels disconnected from that identity. Instead of focusing on street-level stories, he is constantly pulled into world-ending plots with the Avengers, Stark Tech, or Doctor Strange's magic. His problems rarely feel like those of a kid from Queens. They feel like mini-Avenger missions. This takes away the charm that makes Spider-Man unique. Without the friendly neighborhood aspect, Holland's version feels less personal, less grounded, and less authentic. One of Spider-Man's greatest strengths as a character has always been his emotional depth. Tobey Maguire's trilogy gave us unforgettable moments. Uncle Ben's death shaping Peter's sense of responsibility, the heartbreaking struggles with Mary Jane, and the constant sacrifice between personal life and duty. Andrew Garfield's version, while less successful at the box office, delivered raw emotion through his relationship with Gwen Stacy, culminating in her tragic death, which became one of the most powerful scenes in superhero cinema. Tom Holland's Spider-Man, in comparison, lacks that same emotional punch. His early films avoided the defining moment of Uncle Ben, leaving out a core part of Peter Parker's motivation. While Aunt May's death in No Way Home tried to fill that role, many fans felt it came too late and lacked the same lasting impact. Relationships with MJ and Ned are lighthearted, but never reach the depth or tragedy of earlier versions. Without that weight, Holland's Spider-Man feels less meaningful and less inspiring. When fans debate Spider-Man actors, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are often praised for bringing unique qualities to the role. Maguire captured the essence of Peter Parker's struggles, his shy personality, financial problems, and the crushing responsibility of, with great power, comes great responsibility. His trilogy gave audiences some of the most iconic and emotional superhero moments ever filmed. Garfield, though criticized for the scripts of his movies, brought undeniable charisma and chemistry, especially with Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy. His version felt modern, witty, and deeply human, and his grief after Gwen's death became one of the most heartbreaking moments in the franchise. By comparison, Tom Holland's Spider-Man feels lighter but less memorable. While he delivers fun energy and youthful humor, his version lacks the defining moments that made Maguire and Garfield stand out. Fans can easily recall Maguire's train scene or Garfield's tragic fall, but struggle to point to a single iconic scene from Holland's run. Fan reactions to Tom Holland's Spider-Man have been mixed from the beginning. Younger audiences often appreciate his playful energy, school-life humor, and easy connection to the Avengers. For many kids and teens, Holland is the Spider-Man they grew up with, and his light-hearted style makes him fun to watch. Older fans, however, are far less convinced. Many who grew up with Tobey Maguire or connected with Andrew Garfield find Holland's version shallow by comparison. They argue that he lacks independence, emotional depth, and iconic moments that defined earlier portrayals. On social media, he is frequently mocked as the baby Spider-Man or Iron Man's sidekick, memes that reflect the perception that his character is not fully developed. Even though No Way Home gave him a chance to stand on his own, fans note it relied heavily on nostalgia for Tobey and Andrew, not Holland himself. In the end, fan reactions reveal a clear divide. Popular with some, but not respected as the definitive Spider-Man. Tom Holland is a talented actor, and his Spider-Man has certainly entertained a generation of younger fans. He brings energy, humor, and a sense of fun that fits well into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. However, when judged against the legacy of Spider-Man as a character and the performances of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, Holland's version feels incomplete. He relies too heavily on mentors like Iron Man, lacks independence, and misses the emotional core that defines Peter Parker's journey of sacrifice and responsibility.